Hello, welcome to a tutorial on watercolor painting. Today we're going to be focusing on a tricky technique called wet on wet painting. And to make it even more interesting, we're going to be painting a night scene with a lot of splashy colors in it. So we need to focus on keeping things wet, moving, active, mixing together, and yet maintaining some clear lines and a clear sense of what's going on in the subject matter at the same time. So let's get to it. This is going to be a really loose impressionistic painting, and we're going to keep it fun and simple. We're going to learn how to paint wet on wet, but keep a little bit of control as well. So let's go ahead and get started. I've drawn the figures and I've protected the key highlights with some masking fluid, so now I'm going to spray the piece with some clean water, and then I'll use a large flat brush to brush over everything and make sure there's an even coat of water across everything. So I want the surface to be wet but not sopping, so not shiny anymore. And I'm also going to build up under my paper with some scraps of watercolor paper to keep it level. Because when you're painting wet on wet, things like to run all over. Now it's very, very dark, so I'm going to start with the lights. There's some bright oranges and reds and yellows. It's easier to put those in at the beginning and then to work around the dark than to try to put these in later. So I'm just going to kind of stripe in with these different colors that I see. And you can see that the wash is spreading these colors out but not making them really out of control. So that's the level of moisture that's good to work on. I also want some more intense reds. So I'm just building these up as shapes of color, building into what I've got, building on the shapes that I already put down. Okay, so I've got some of these darks established. Now I need to go in with my large flat and start laying in the grays. So I'm going to mix up some different shades, and then just really, really quickly I'm laying in some intense darks here. So I've got to establish a bit of the street edge right here, and then things under here get even more wet, and they're very dark. So I need to work around the brights like this, but I need to do all of this while it's still wet so that those colors will bleed together and give me that nice loose wet on wet look. This is a difficult technique to learn, so don't be too disappointed in yourself if it doesn't go well the first time. It really is harder than it looks. Once you start on this, you're going to realize that there's more going on in this simple looking scene than you might have thought. And a lot of it needs to happen in this first pass while everything is uniformly wet and it will mix together. You don't have this opportunity later on in the painting. You're never going to get this stage back again, so make the most of it. I'm just dropping in some different darks, paying really close attention to my reference. Okay, my paper's drying on me, so I need to hurry it up. Get these laid down before everything dries. Okay, now don't forget to give yourself some sprays of water as you work to keep things moving and keep them wet, keep them fluid. Even though sometimes that's going to be the last thing that you think that you want, like, not more water please. But in those dry patches, that's what you need. Now I'm just going to go in, now that the paper is just a little bit more dry, I'm dropping in more of those dark vertical lines that helps it to look like a street scene. So I've got these darks, and then I've got some kind of window shapes. I've got what looks like just vaguely the edge of a curb, like they're walking on a street in a bright street lamp filled downtown scene. Okay, so this is looking interesting. You can't let it get too light and washed out, because as it dries it's going to get even brighter and those colors are going to be lost. The vibrancy gets toned down as it dries. So you need to make sure that they're very intense and very dark. And just keep pushing it like this. It dries, then you can add things that you don't want to bleed out as much, and then you can wet down things you need to keep nice and wet. So it's a back and forth process.